I had an issue with the rev counter cable that I was relying on the rev counter to be able to help me set up the cars. I wanted to get the pilot jet set up initially so that the engine is running relatively cleanly before I start trying with the carb tube, which I've never used before. The rev counter turned out was jam solid, so I've sent that off to get it refurbished. And in the meantime, I have stolen borrowed, shall we say, the rev counter that is destined to go on to the BSAA 65. Same part. It's an RSM 3003. This one I think's a 1.5, maybe. The one that was on there and is being repaired is a RSM 3003-01A. But it will work. So I got a new rev counter cable from Ben Hill, and I was fitting that, and of course that's in behind the headlight, so there's a bit of a mess there to sort out. And I thought, well, while I'm there, I will change the indicator bulbs over to LED style. Not much saving in current, but they tend to last longer. I noticed that the bulbs in the high beam and the oil warning were incandescent type and going black on the inside. So okay, so put it back together, and then I noticed that the oil pressure warning light was staying on. So I thought, well, okay, I've been disturbing stuff, so it'll probably be me being stupid somewhere. But it consistently stayed on, and I measured the resistance of the switch at about 19 ohms when it should be off. I thought, oh, okay. So I pulled the wire off the switch under the engine, and the light went out. So that indicates to me that the issue isn't in the wiring between the oil pressure warning light and the oil pressure warning switch. And when I plugged the wire back in, the light came back on. The implication being, of course, is that the oil pressure warning switch is old, damaged. So I then went to order another one, and of course Triumph, in their infinite wisdom, specified two different types. There's the one with the parallel threads and the one with the tapered threads, and they're of course not interchangeable. My engine should, I think, be a later engine, because it's a service replacement engine, so I believe that it is a parallel thread, so I've ordered one of those. In the meantime, of course, it doesn't have to be the switch. It could be that the oil pressure is that low. It is returning all right, but I won't run the engine until I'm sure. So some while ago I ordered a oil pressure gauge from Triples Unlimited. and I was never really sure I was going to fit it. I was going to use it as a test unit, but of course I now have some questions about the oil system on this bike, so the plan is to fit that. The gauge, an oil-filled gauge, comes with a handlebar clamp that fits on quite nicely, and I've been moving the gauge around a bit to try to work out where I can fit it. I've actually put the seat on and I sat and looked. I have a Zumo sat nav, which you saw me doing the wiring on before. I could put the gauge on the right hand handlebar or the left hand handlebar, but if I put it on the left hand side, it does get in the way a little bit of the trip meter on the Speedo, and I tend to use the trip meter to track how much petrol I've got. So when I fill up, I set it to 0, and then 100, 120 miles or whatever, I fill up again, so I know then I'm less likely to run out. The connection between the engine oil pressure and the oil pressure gauge is using a banjo bolt and a capillary tube that goes up to the gauge. That actually is fed from the oil gallery that is connected to the main bearings. So obviously this could get quite messy. They do recommend doing this with the engine empty of oil, and of course I don't really want to do that as I've got new oil in there. Of course, there would be an ideal time to actually have a drain plug in the sump, but let's take this off and see what happens. That tray is quite noisy. The banjo bolt prepared with the washers either side as recommended. Oh, so it's not actually draining as such. That's fun. This would not be a good time to cross-thread that bolt. So the photograph in the instruction manual shows that sort of an angle for the so that then the oil pipe needs to go up the frame, keeping well away from the exhaust and the oil cooler according to the instructions. The plastic capillary tube from the engine goes up, in my case, through the centre, behind the headlight and onto the gauge. I have used some temporary time lapse to gauge its length, and having done that, I now am going to feed the outer protective cover through. There we go. Such that I can actually then feed that through up and then be careful of all the cables so that you don't fall foul of those. And in there, the idea is to get it behind the steering stop. Yeah. So it comes up behind the steering stop there. I'm going to obviously secure it a little better than that, and then into the back of the gauge. I should mention, while fitting the pipes for the oil pressure gauge, that the pipe cuts very easily, even with just cheap supermarket scissors. Very cleanly, no problem at all. The instructions say remove the gauge from the handlebars, grip the pipe with some pliers and push it on, having made sure you've got the little clamp on first. There we go. That was relatively easy. And I believe that this also needs doing up reasonably tight so you don't get a leak. And they said use pliers for that as well. But don't over tighten. Seems okay. I can always come back later and tighten it up more. Right, let's put that back together. Okay, so here we go. Interesting. Try again. Still no oil pressure. I took out both of the feed points or oil galleries to the main bearings and pumped oil in, because I've obviously got no oil pressure. Fun fact, that when you pump oil in one side with both sides open, after a while oil comes out the other hole. So I then got to the point where I got that and then put one in and then pumped the other one up and put that bolt in quickly. So I then knew I had oil to the main bearings. I then decided to prime the oil feed from the oil tank into the engine to see if that was the issue why I was losing or not getting any oil pressure at all. And I might have found the smoking gun in that I'd only actually done this up finger tight from when I primed it the last time. So I've tightened it up, and but having pumped the oil into the pipe to make sure it was as full as possible, and then I decided let's fit the petrol tank and see how we get on. Okay, so the moment of truth. Will I get any oil pressure? I did see some when I was spinning the engine over without the spark plugs in, but all the oil connected, so we'll see what happens. We'll give it a start. And the oil pressure went away. Oh, why did it do that? I am still having some issues with the oil system on the Triumph Trident. Yesterday evening it showed no oil pressure, so I switched it off. This morning I took the feed pipe that comes from the oil tank via the LP Williams anti-drain valve and checked that, having tightened it up yesterday, and it was still full of oil. Well, oh, that's good news. So I started the bike up and I got oil pressure, although it wasn't very consistent, it was quite low, but then I got some clunking noise coming from the primary chain case. And that implies to me that there's a problem with the oil pump or the oil pump drive, all of which of course is over 55 years old or however long, or 1970, so yeah, quite a long time ago. So I guess I'm going to have to take that apart and have a look. I think that might happen. I think I might put it into the dining room garage when I get the Norton out, because I've got the bits for the Norton, so I can progress. As part of my quest to understand why I keep losing oil pressure, I thought I'd look at the pump drive and the pump area itself to see what's going on. And there's nothing that stands out. I did note that the primary chain does appear to be rubbing the screw at the center of the oil pump drive, and I've not seen that before, so my immediate concern was, well, perhaps the pump's not fully home, which would explain quite a lot. However, the pump drive pinion actually lines up with the driven pinion perfectly, so that suggests to me that the everything is fully home. The other thing I found was that the oil appears to be very runny. Now, I was using, or I'm using an oil at this point in time that is relatively cheap, semi-synthetic, and I decided I'd use that as the initial startup oil, so I can then change it out for some much more expensive 2050, but I think I might do that now or soon. So I'm going to take the bike into the Dynamo garage at some point very soon, and once I've got the Norton out, of course, and then I'm going to take the oil pump out and look at that, and look at the drive option, because I'm sure that shouldn't be rubbing like that, and obviously change all the oil out, and hopefully by then I may have got the sump plate with a drain in it, so we shall see on that front. So that's going to wrap up this video. I did get curious, so that's why I did take the primary drive apart. I'm also going to take the side stand off and heat it up and bend it a little bit, because it's holding the bike too vertical, and when you push the bike around it just keeps catching. So that'll get done at during this little process as well. If the oil is contaminated with petrol, that petrol must come from the carbs. Now I've measured the carbs are 7 degrees off the vertical, and I calculated that the change in the float level would be about 0.23 of an inch. And you're allowed anywhere from 0.17 to 0.24. So I thought I'd be all right, but obviously that isn't the case, and of course that's relying on the float height being set perfectly, which I didn't check. So I need to actually fix that, and I need to get the carbs more vertical. I mean, if you look at any of the photographs of a T160, you'll see that the amyl carbs are in the vertical, not slanted. So my plan is, when I get the bike apart to look at the oil pump, I'll take the clutch out and the clutch cover. I shall chop off the spigot that's sticking out the top of the cover, and insert a shallow plug from underneath, so I still can use the vacuum of the carbs to suck out the fumes from inside the primary chain case. And that's where we are.